ESPN anchor and award-winning sportscaster Hannah Storm has interviewed many of the greatest names in sports because of her outstanding work. She is recognized around the world, and she is now using that celebrity platform for another great cause, teaming up with the nonprofit Caring for Kids awareness campaign of the Plastic Surgery Foundation. And we are delighted to have Hannah Storm, who is, of course, part of the ABC family. Thank you much for joining us.
I can't believe that you are sitting here interviewing me after all the times that I've interviewed you. So,
and all the times you stumped me on air. You're very researched with all your stuff.
The tables are turned. Truth be told, I have never once ever stumped you because you're one of the greats of all time. But I'm really pleased and honored to be interviewed by you here for ABC News. This is very cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I know this campaign has been very dear and close to your heart. You've had your own personal experience with it as well.
Yeah, I was born with something called a port wine stain. It looks like somebody took a glass of red wine and just threw it on your face. I don't know if you've ever seen, Jay, people with almost half their face that was dark red. Well, mine was right here. And so it left my parents totally bewildered. What do? We have our baby's got this big thing on her face and over her eyes. So during the years, starting in grade school through high school, I had all these surgeries. Doctors tried to actually cut it out and stitch the skin back together. They tattooed it flesh color, believe it or not. That did not work out. It sounds bizarre, and it was. It didn't work out at all. I still have a little bit of it left. And I had these laser surgeries that left third-degree burns under my eyes. So it was traumatic. I commend my parents for trying to figure out what to do. We had the funds and the ability to try different surgeries. But, fast forward to today, there are so many more advances in medicine. You have parents who are equally as bewildered, who are absolutely gutted because their child is born with some kind of deformity or disfigurement and they don't know what to do or where to turn. And that's what this Caring for Kids campaign is all about.
How are you guys bringing more awareness about it?
Well, what we're doing is the American Association of Plastic Surgeons has a whole group of surgeons who specialize in pediatrics and specialize in different areas of plastic surgery. And we're talking about everything from cleft lip, cleft palate, to vascular anomalies, to really, really serious syndromes that affects kids' abilities to eat or see or hear. I mean, really, really bad stuff. And they look deformed. They don't look like everybody else. And these surgeons have agreed to do surgeries on the weekends, which would normally be their off day, right? They have their own families. So they're coming in on weekends or partnering up with hospitals who might not have surgery scheduled on the weekends. A lot of hospitals, it's kind of light. And they're performing these surgeries for free. So that's what we're putting together, families and kids in need, because these surgeries are super expensive. They're not covered by insurance, with the plastic surgeons who are willing to do the surgeries for free. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. And how important, how imperative is it to get to these kids at an early stage?
Oh my gosh, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's so critical. Because kids, for one, they're able to heal easier. They have, all this great collagen in their skin, and they're able to, regenerate, and the healing powers of a little child and even a baby are at their premium. We lose some of that as we get older. But the other thing is, if you could save a child from going through years of things like I went through, which is stares and embarrassment and insensitive comments, not only to the child, but also to the parents. I mean, who hit you? What's wrong with your face? What happened to you? Why did you leave your kid out in the sun? And they got burned. What did you do to your child? I mean, the stories are really tough, not just for the kids, but for the family in general. So if you can save them years of that ahead too, there's all that, psychological and emotional implications of being born not looking like everybody else, that you could hopefully just put it, you're a sports guy, right? So you put a kid at the same starting line as everybody else, or somewhere close to it. If you can do that, the earlier you can get to the child, the better.
When you're growing up, obviously dealing with all that, when I see you now, you're so confident. I watch you all the time on TV, and you have great confidence about you. How did you get to a point where you had that confidence? How did you develop that?
I think that parents are really imperative in that area. I think that, I was born with a disfiguring birthmark. Other people are born with other things that make them different from other kids. And my parents were always like, you should follow your dreams and And what parents of kids who are born with birthmarks always tell them, and this might sound corny, but they always say that's where the angel kissed you. And my mom said, that angel got you right there under the eye. That's where she kissed you, and you're special. And the fact that my parents tried so hard, and listen, I didn't want to go through the surgeries. I was like, just let me live with this thing. The surgeries were so horrible. But the fact that my parents cared so much and they put so much time and effort into trying to have me not have any kind of setback, that, I think, love right there gave me an inner confidence. And also really, look at the profession I went into, right? You're in the public eye.
Exactly. Every day of your life.
So that, I think knowing that you're loved like that, and knowing that your parents believe in you and they're trying their best to help you put your best step forward, it makes you want to kind of step up to the plate and say, yes, I'm going to do my best and beyond to make everything I can out of my life. And so I think it was that simple. It was my parents.
Speaking of parents, are there any preventative measures that parents could potentially take in to maybe help with some of these?
You know what, there are, because when you take a baby when they're born and you take them to the pediatrician, and depending on where you live, that pediatrician might not really know all the different conditions and things that are out there. The pediatrician might see a birthmark and say, oh, that's going to go away, or oh, this is something that the child will outgrow, when really maybe it is something that you would benefit from taking care of right away. So it's really imperative as a parent, you have that gut instinct, just listen to that and get your child to see a specialist. So there are a lot of cases where children are born where they really should see a specialist, a pediatric plastic surgeon, someone who really knows what they're doing. So really listen to that voice inside your head. If something feels a little off, your child looks a little off, definitely pursue it. Get on the internet, see a doctor, and really make sure that you find out what treatments are available out there and whether or not your child really would benefit from having that at a young age. It's a hard thing to think about, right? You have a baby and you put them right back into surgery. That's a really tough thing to wrap your brain around, but sometimes it really is for the best.
How do you guys get more information out there about this kind of stuff?
Well, you can go to Plastic Surgery Foundation has a great website, thepsf.org, and then you just search Caring for Kids, hannahstormfoundation.org. We'll get you there to the spectrum of what the Plastic Surgery Foundation deals with. I deal with vascular anomalies and birthmarks at my foundation. They deal with everything. They deal with everything from burns and reconstructive surgery to the cleft palates to the rare syndromes, the whole kit and caboodle. Some of the surgeries need teams of doctors. They need multiple surgeries, but they're right there for you. Insurance does not pay for a lot of that. I know that's like shocking. Really? I can see your expression. When it says plastic surgery, there's such a misconception about what plastic surgery is and what it can do and what it can do for lives and what it does for serious medical conditions, that a lot of times these surgeries are just turned down out of hand. And that's because some of the insurance coding language isn't there, the CPT codes, and it's just this incredible bias about plastic surgery. So you have kids who are not going in for cosmetics, they're going in for life-altering procedures, and they're not getting insured. And so that's where, these dollars don't go to the actual surgeries because the surgeons are donating them, but the dollars go to defray, basic hospital costs, getting the family there, taking care of the family, their transportation, and supporting them.
How difficult is it to be a female broadcaster, essentially in the sports world, which is the boys' world?
Well, I think it's been challenging. Through the years, there have been, different people that I think have preconceived notions about what you can and can't do because you're a woman. I think that in the past, more so than now, there was a sentiment that this was sort of a bastion of male superiority, or that sports was somehow a secret language or something that only men could understand and appreciate, when really sports is for everybody. I was lucky to grow up in a sports household because that was my father's business. He was on the business side of sports teams back in the old ABA days. And so I felt like sports was for my whole family, for me, my brothers. Not everybody was fortunate enough to grow up with those kinds of attitudes. And sports is so critical for girls. just to participate in sports is so huge for their body image and their self-esteem, and in so many ways. And it just kind of breaks my heart that there are still people out there that feel somehow this isn't a realm where women and young girls should be involved in, because it's for everybody. If you think about universally across the world, that is one thing that we have in common as a planet, is our love of sports, our love of our teams. And it's such a bridge builder. And so to me, anything that's exclusionary in sports is particularly heartbreaking, because it's something that everyone should love and enjoy.
Did you feel like your margin of error was slimmer than for a guy?
Definitely, because I know that, when I first started off, especially, the microscope was there and you felt like you couldn't make a mistake. Where you really get screwed up is when you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be perfect, and where you really, really get screwed up is when you go out and try to prove how much you know. There's really no need to do that. If you're prepared and knowledgeable and you have a quiet confidence, that's going to come through. And in today's age, in Twitter and with all the social media out there, you've got to be very, very careful to understand where that's coming from and not take those kinds of things to heart. You've got to have a tough skin and be self-confident and understand all of that criticism is coming, as is most criticism in life. And I tell young girls this too, my daughters, is coming from a bad place. That's coming from someone who's in a bad place, whether they're jealous or insecure, whatever their issues are. You can't take that kind of criticism to heart. So you have to be really careful to be prepared and to do your best and to understand that that's enough and that's good enough, and no one's perfect and no one has the answers, and to try not to put attendant pressure on yourself more than already exists.
If you were sitting down with an 8-year-old little girl who was so passionate about becoming a broadcaster, what kind of advice would you give her?
Do your homework.
Do your homework. Be sharp. You're always sharp.
Yeah, I always do my homework. I always over-prepare for everything, and people think it's funny, but I don't know any other way. And when I go into a situation, a lot of sports is live, I always feel confident because I know that I over-prepared. So I'm ready for when everything falls apart and things go wild and things happen that you don't expect. At least you're prepared for it. And and you walked in knowing that you did your homework and that you're ready to do your best. And you might screw up and it might not be your greatest broadcast that day, and who knows, but at least you're not going to go back with any regrets and saying, wow, I really walked into that unprepared. At least you're giving yourself a leg up going in, right?
You always have a leg up over the competition, trust me. And you inspire me to be better too. So thank you so much.
I just want to say for you, because I did this a few years ago, I went from sports into news and worked at CBS News for a number of years. And I think it's really important, and I really admire what you're doing, really pushing your boundaries, going from an athlete, going into be a sportscaster and working in news. And it is important to think beyond sort of boundaries and little pigeonholes that people put you in. You ask about being a female broadcaster, and I think it's important to not let yourself be limited by what other people expect you to do. So you're a great example of that as well, Jay.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Hannah. Hopefully I could be in this position more with you. I can ask you more questions down the line.
Just, keep the tough questions to a minimum, all right?
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Hannah Storm, everybody, so great to have you. Thank you for being here. And make sure you check out the Plastic Surgery Foundation. Hannah's a big supporter of it.